Good afternoon. We have heard a lot about different technologies and different concepts to actually make value out of the information and the content we have in different sources. And I'll try to get this to a different level or view it from a different perspective. Actually, how do you create benefit in your company or in your business with all the technologies given and all the concepts given, and to get to a really practical example. Obviously, there's a lot of technology in the market. We have a long history, and I'm much more on the content services side because I think there are business processes where we talked about that we need information in context. That's absolutely right. But during these business processes, we need to act upon, and it's a service actually the user consumes at some point in time. So if we look at the current situation most enterprises are in, we obviously have business processes which go end-to-end throughout a company, most likely, or even outside your company. And you have different kinds of system at some point in time. Yeah? You have an SAP system potentially to run your financials. But if you look at your opportunity or lead to opportunity or lead to order process, this may cross the border of your financial system into your CRM system back and forth. Most companies haven't connected those dots. And it's a content-heavy process, actually, because you potentially come with a couple of proposals. You go to a first offer. You potentially have a contract to be signed. You take it out into a document or DocuSign environment in another cloud. The customer actually signed it, and now you need to see that it comes back and it goes back to your ERP system that you probably can invoice and so on and so forth. So what we see with most customers today, they have a lot of best-of-breed systems. They have obviously do some integration, but they haven't connected all of their business processes end-to-end. And that's a key thing. And from our perspective, mobilization, automation, artificial intelligence plays a key role here. Obviously, the future will be microservices. There's no doubt about this. We need to provide different services throughout a process when a user acts in context. And I'll give you some real-life examples. We obviously use artificial intelligence today. It goes far beyond discovering context, information out of a big pool of information and documents and so on and so forth. It actually needs to trigger the process. So gathering the information the best way is the first step. But the real second step is that you take the right action. I've spoken with a company who is dealing with a lot of financial transactions. They actually do, for example, if you have a loyalty card as a customer and you haven't paid your invoice, they try to follow up with you and get the money. Right? So this is a multi-step process where you need to create a ton of documents, legal documents. You get an email back from a consumer complaining that it's wrong and he actually paid and so on and so forth. You have no idea how many systems are involved in this process. And every time they switch from a system to another system. So actually their biggest problem is obviously to digitize all of these documents, to make meaningful content out of this with artificial intelligence or rule-based systems to create metadata, but then actually move this document and this whole transaction to the right employee. Because they have employees specialized on different topics. Call center agents, for example, who are specialized on food industry or on banking industry and so on and so forth. And to understand the content of the document, pass it on to the right employee in the company is of huge value. And this is actually where artificial intelligence in such kind of scenario, if you talk about digitization of content, creating meaningful information to use it into processes and really come to the point where information and content gets automatically processed and you create real business value for the user in front of whatever device. And I'll give you an example later on. So you use artificial intelligence not only for exploring information, but actually to trigger the right process. You obviously lose a ton of microservices, such as job portals. Right? If you have the right microservice, there are microservices out in the market which actually can connect to 250 job portals at the same time. And the ones who are in the tech industry know how crucial it is to get the right talents on board. That's super difficult, and you probably want to publish your job advertising for your most critical employee, the next employee, into 250 job portals to get the best coverage across the globe and get this talent on board. And actually how to engage with 250 job portals. Yeah? So you need a service which is actually post your one job posting into it, you get all your feedback, you obviously get information out of emails, you receive CVs from applicants, and then you need to filter it down to make it meaningful, to get it to the right person, the right country, to the HR person, to hire this talent. You don't want to miss it out. So content services goes far beyond that. It actually takes things to automation. And where you end up, if you use all of the right technologies, you end up into connected systems, which, you know, I don't sit on this term, but actually that's what it is. Customers in reality have a ton of different systems where business processes normally goes across. We have another example of a customer who has a production plant. They have a very fine list of bill of material. They know precisely what they need. If you have a car manufacturer, you know what we're talking about. And potentially this bill of material changes because the car version changes 3 times a year. So fine. The purchasing department runs on SAP, not on the manufacturing system. On the purchasing system, they buy material, but they have a different list of bill of material because they're not synchronized. So your business process goes from a production system over to a purchasing system, over potentially to aftermarket sales, because some customers may walk into your store quite a while after the car has been produced and say, I need exactly for this 1956 built car, this special part. And you really want to know if this is exactly what you have. So you need to synchronize all of these systems, and they go across your enterprise applications today. And the big advantage of the former ECM industry is that they have dealt with all of these kind of ERP, supply chain management, and CRM system because they have stored information into their archives a long time ago. But they actually can leverage this information and these connectors to actually build processes across those. And once in a while, the process your ERP provider provides to you is not the best of breed. So what you actually see is that potentially that this special customer process is so differentiating for your business that you want to treat it differently from the process set which have been determined by SAP or by Salesforce. And if you try to change a Salesforce process or an SAP process, it takes a while and you have high customizations and customers try to avoid these things. So you potentially take a minimal part of this process and through the connections, so the platform you connected is, you have integrated all your microservices, you actually do a transaction on its own. You make it information in context where your user is in this point in time and probably wants to change something. And then you need to synchronize it obviously back to all the systems that you all have the different level of information at some point in time. So it needs to be scalable, transaction reliable, all of these kinds of stuff. And it obviously needs to be mobile. Because users today, if you digitize your business process, you need to be mobile, you need to be very flexible, and actually, if you try to give somebody such a platform or a tool or a mobile application in hand, this changes. Because if you do this rightly, you actually walk in an agile fashion. So you create a minimal viable product, how you call it in agile development, and say, well, you get an 80% solution, yeah, and this is already creating tremendous amount of value out in the field because you can actually do 5 things you can never do before and you had paperwork before and so on and so forth. Great. 3 months later, they said, well, we need this additional feature. So you need to be able not to program such a platform when you move services and you move content along a process. You actually need to be able to configure it low code or no code. And that's a big challenge for the industry. The industry comes from high scripting and hard coding of processes, right? In a microservice architecture, you need to orchestrate different services to create business value and meaningful applications. And this is only a piece part here. As I said, we talk about job portals. We talk about blockchain in the future. We talk about IoT. We talk about signing platforms like DocuSign, others. There may be tons of services which hits your industry or which are already there. Or you can see them embracing in a couple of years and you say, actually, I need to be faster than anybody else and I want this service to be integrated into my platform. So your services platform need to be built the way that it's totally open for additional business services. And then you need to be able to configure those in a way that your user can make the next version of your mobile app, for example, can access them and can use them. And this is the interesting bit. So why is this relevant and how does it really hit the market? Well, here we go. Most of the customers out there, the companies I speak with, and I guess we have a lot of people who are in the enterprise business in this room, say, well, we actually have invested in SAP like 20 million. The whole company runs on SAP. Unfortunately, we bought this small company over in the US and they run on Oracle financials. Okay, so my CEO now tells me I need to digitize my field service process. But I have no budget and I can't change to all SAP nor to all Oracle. I cannot even introduce a whole service cloud at this point in time. And it's far too late because they want it in 3 months from now and not in 3 years from now. So most companies actually avoid this big bang approach. We have a lot of customers who actually tried to move everything on the SAP cloud and took every process from SAP, from supply chain to financial administration, customer service and so forth, so on and so forth. This is a huge risk. It takes a long time to implement these projects. It's like a big bang. It's like building a Berlin airport, right? It can go wrong, yeah, maybe. So your risk is high, your complexity of the project is super high, your budget is super high, and the company is actually not getting value in 3 months. So how do I get value in 3 months, real value, step by step, and take a lower risk? So most customers to us say, well, we have these 3 systems. We actually bought another company down in Asia. So what do we do now? And we say, well, the approach is to get a microservices platform to attach all of your systems, to actually run your business processes across those, and makes them transparent. Information, rightly said from one of my dear colleagues here who have spoken before, information and content will not be stored in one place. It will be all over the place, and we need to rightly take the content into context at this point in time when I need them. That's meaning that I connect to all of those systems at the end of the day and actually take the relevant content for this situation. So, okay. Here we go. There's one slide missing, which I do see here. Okay, so as I said, if you take the all-at-once approach, most customers say, no, no budget, no time, too high risk. We have too many other examples who failed. So they will not take this high risk of changing all of their backend systems, and there's no need to, because they have been installed, there's a huge investment, and you actually want to protect your investment. It's high complexity, and we all know if we increase complexity, things get under high risk exposure, you have a time exposure, and you hook with a process you have been given. To modify processes from a given system is quite a hard thing to do. And if you buy into SAP or others, you're basically determined in a certain process set which you need to follow. And you're better off if you change your company process. But if you say, well, actually, this process is so important to me, it actually means something to me, I differentiate in the market, you probably choose a different process. So you're off for changing things in a different fashion. Having said this, what we see in the market and what actually is the right way to go is go one process or even one process step at a time. Work in an agile fashion, step by step, and take your quality management process or your talent management first. Connect your systems through a microservices platform, take your talent management process, make it work digital, get everybody, get high usability, and create the value. Take the next process at the next time, and then in an agile fashion, create the next part. But your platform needs to be ready. It needs to have the capability of using all of those services at the same time. That actually reduces your time to market. You can create value very fast. You take one process, field service, and say, I'll help you. You have it in 3 months from now, and it creates tremendous value. You have a lighthouse project, even internally in your company, you can say, this is working very well. Next department, what is your biggest pain point? How can I help you? And you use all of the technologies we have talked about. It's actually low risk, because if you fail, you just failed on a small budget, you failed on a small project, you can restart. And you have a flexible process design. If you take a part of a process or a whole process out, you can actually design this process the way it creates value for your employees, customers, partners, and customers. And this is where it actually comes from. It's evolution, not revolution. Most customers today have significant installations on premise. There's no doubt about it. And then a new CIO, a new chief digital officer comes, and our strategy is cloud first. And then the CIO says, well, we have cloud first now. We have invested so much money into all of our systems, even the former ECM systems. What do? And you actually need to be able to create a microservices platform running in the cloud, which enables you transparently to access your data, to access your information, get all of the services done in a hybrid fashion. So you can tell your customer, your investments are actually safe, and we take the next process to the cloud without having a different user experience. It's actually far easier. The key parameters to get this done is integration into your backends. So you need to have a microservices platform which has the capability to connect deeply and transaction reliable in as many backend systems as you can. You need to have a platform which enables you to a modern mobile user experience. And you need to be able to orchestrate services, even the services we're up to come, like the ones which are probably relevant in 3 years from now. For example, blockchain, or other input devices like HoloLenses or Siri speech and whatsoever. Yeah? These services need to be easy to adapt, and most important, it should be low code. This should not be hugely complicated. Services need to be easy to orchestrate and to create value. As I promised, I'll try to bridge this with a generic example, not a product. And we have taken as an example something which you're probably all familiar with. A field service engineer gets an order. In this case, we have chosen somebody who installs heating systems and climate system. So in the old world, this poor field service engineer got a pile of paper in the morning and says, here are 8 customers, off you go. And actually what happens to this field service engineer, he logs into a mobile device and says, okay, where are my orders? And what you actually do is you connect to an ERP system which has all of your customer orders stored, which are scheduled for today. So he sees his personal dashboard in a modern user interface, which is easy to handle. There's no training needed, right? So this is as easy like installing an Apple phone. And he looks into his orders and says, well, let me have a look. Here we go. We have all of these orders which I need to work on today. I'm scheduled for them. And actually, it's so easy that I can just click on it and find my map. And with this map, I can optimize my logistics. I get navigated to my next customer. I can even plan my time. I can be pre-scheduled, and I'll go there. So there's no complicated process any longer. Actually, your company knows where you are, so you can tell the next customer when you're ready. So there's a lot of benefits, obviously, behind it, which goes back. Remember, the order comes originally from your ERP system. The tracking information potentially goes into your after-sales system. And then you arrive at your customer. You can call the customer. You can see the ticket. And you can actually scan the device. Remember, we have a microservices platform. That's the goal we want to design. And you scan a device. With scanning the device, you get all of the information across this single system which is installed at customer. And if you have scanned the device, you're actually connecting to the IoT platform because your microservices platform provides an IoT interface. With this, you have all of the information from this heating system and you easily figure out what the temperature is, all of the other stuff. The customer told you what his problem was, fine. And you actually drill down, and you figure out that you have an immediate drop in airflow rate on the fan of the system. So that was a pretty easy diagnosis, and you actually start working on the system because you have figured out what's going on. Normally, you would probably take a manual, and if you have carried enough in your car, or you probably used your iPad to find it, right? You actually looked into it for the right system, the right version of the system, and you figure out what the air fan does. But if you are on a microservices platform, which is access to all of the content, all of the documents you have, and you have scanned the device, you know the version of the production release, and so on and so forth, and you get all of the information as a checklist, content in context, information in context, and you work through your checklist. You can actually put data in, you can say, well, I've tested this, I've replaced this, and so on and so forth. You can order parts if needed, and it's related to your system. There's no wrong part ordering because you scanned the system before, and you connect it to your supply chain system, and you ordered the right parts because there is no room for failure any longer. So you worked through all of this, you have completed it, you actually said it's done. The customer gets all the certificates, measuring documents, whatever you have, and you basically put it back into the system, as well as send it to the customer that he potentially has a certificate that he done his maintenance on his heating system or gas system or whatsoever, whatever is required. And at the end of the day, the customer signs, it goes straight back to your ERP system, and you can send out an invoice. The field technician leaves the customer and is on its way to the next customer with this wonderful map, and everything is done. You have completed a case on your after-sales services system. You have taken an order which is now completed, which have been signed by the customer. You have created an invoice, you have created a certificate, and the guy had no single piece of paper. So you have done a complete content flow in context for this guy, for this poor field technician carrying on lots of manuals and other stuff, just in time, and he is just on its way to the next customer. There is no thing like that. He, after 8 customers in the evening, spends another hour at home typing in everything and say, well, we need to send an invoice, or we need to book this part, or don't know precisely what version of the system I actually need to book this part for. This is completely gone. So the elimination of error is a significant value to the company. The speed of the process increases. The productivity of the workforce increases. And actually, the employee satisfaction improves. And by tracking your field service and getting the customer better service, because you can precisely say, well, my technician will be 15 minutes later or 20 minutes earlier, your customer service improves. This is a real differentiator. And this is how microservices platforms, if you connect all of your digital environment, make actually meaningful content and transactions out of an environment which is heavy content based, but it's actually accessing transactional data from ERP systems, supply chain systems, combines this with what we call documents in the past, right? With artificial intelligence, where we actually pull the right meaningful data out of it, guide the guy to the right point, and we create it this way that we can integrate more service in the future. I could easily exchange this to a DocuSign signature. I can easily make the certificate, a blockchain certificate, which can be distributed across a partner of mine who installed the heating, go into the customer, and I know this is unchanged, this is real, this is what the customer received. So you can see that this is actually the way the industry, from my perspective, needs to go. And obviously everything we do needs to be super easy. The users, the employees, everything we have needs to be adaptable, like we install an iPhone, This is it. Low code, no training, ideally, easy to use. That's where the industry should target for. And this is how everything we have spoken about today actually hits the ground. And this is why this industry has a bright future, and that's why the market is growing. So I cut it a little short, I hope. Thank you so much.